My parents lived rent-free in my Lakeview apartment. Then they told my fiancé I was mentally unstable so he'd leave me. She's always been a liar, haven't you noticed? My mom whispered. A week later, I moved out, took every appliance, and rented it to a famous YouTuber. Let me be clear, I didn't get here overnight. It took years of trying to be the perfect daughter, the generous daughter, the understanding one, the forgiving one. And then within a matter of months everything cracked. The first big shift happened when my parents, Maureen and Daniel, moved in with me. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. Their house in Wilmette had major water damage after a pipe burst during a severe January freeze. They didn't have the savings to fix it right away. I offered. Of course I offered. I loved them. I was raised to believe family meant stepping up, no matter what. So I invited them to live in the guest room of my Lakeview apartment. The place I worked myself off for. I'd bought it at 29 after years of sacrifice, saying no to vacations, second-hand furniture, and working overtime at a boutique marketing firm on Michigan Avenue. It had big windows, views of the lake, and a kitchen I designed down to the tile. For the first few weeks, it felt okay. Cramped, but okay. My fiancé, Marcus, was over often. He and I had been together for 3 years. He's a history teacher, low-key and gentle in his manner, which is probably why he and my parents got along too well. Or so I thought. But things began to change. My mother started making these comments. At first, they were tiny little stings disguised as concern. She's always been a little dramatic, she'd say with a laugh when I got passionate about something. Do you remember how she used to lie about being sick just to stay home? She said one evening when I mentioned needing a mental health day from work. Marcus would just smile awkwardly, maybe chuckle, and I'd shoot her a look. She always played innocent. And then, she got bolder. Once, I came home early from work. I walked in quietly, headphones in, and overheard her speaking to Marcus in the kitchen. I stood just behind the hallway wall, not visible but close enough to hear every word. She's always had trouble being honest. Haven't you noticed? My mother's voice was low, syrupy sweet. It's always been hard for her to separate reality from what she wants to be true. I didn't hear Marcus respond, just the clink of his coffee mug being set down. You should be careful, she added. You're such a kind man. I'd hate to see you tied to someone who needs help she won't get. I walked in then, calmly, even though I was shaking. She smiled at me like she'd just asked about the weather. Morning, Ava, she said, stirring her tea. Marcus didn't look at me. From that moment on, I knew something had shifted. It wasn't just snide remarks or passive aggression anymore. It was hampered. And it was working. I should probably back up and tell you that I'm not unstable. I've never been hospitalized, never had a breakdown. The closest I came was in college, when I had a panic attack during finals week and went to urgent care thinking it was a heart issue. I was 20, overcaffeinated, underslept, and overwhelmed. I did therapy afterward for a semester. That's it. I told Marcus about that years ago. It was never a secret. It wasn't even something that impacted our relationship. Until my mother decided to weaponize it. Suddenly, Marcus started second-guessing everything I said. If I got upset? You're overreacting. If I cried? Do you think maybe you should talk to someone? If I said I didn't want to spend Sunday dinner listening to my mother call me emotional, he said I was being unfair. The worst part? I started questioning myself too. Was I being too sensitive? Was I imagining things? But deep down, no. I wasn't. I knew what they were doing. My parents weren't helpless guests. They were manipulative house guests, chipping away at my relationship from the inside out. I started noticing all the little changes in Marcus. He stopped making long-term plans. We stopped talking about wedding venues. He canceled a visit to my aunt's anniversary party, saying he just needed some space. I found him scrolling through old photos of us one night, looking unsure. When I finally confronted him, he told me he felt like he didn't really know who I was. That stung. But the dagger came when he added, "Your mom said you were in the hospital once. You never told me that." I laughed. Out loud. "Marcus, I did tell you. A panic attack, remember? In college? It wasn't a secret." "She said it was more serious than that," he said quietly. "That you covered it up." I just stared at him. "That's when I realized," I said finally. "You believe her over me." He didn't say anything. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The person I loved didn't trust me anymore. The people who raised me had turned my own home into a war zone. I felt cornered in the life I built myself. I didn't cry. Not that night. I didn't even get angry. I just made a decision. I was done letting people live inside my boundaries while stepping all over them. I didn't tell anyone what I planned. Not Marcus. Not my parents. I waited until they left one Saturday morning to go to the farmer's market. Then I called the movers. They were gone for maybe 2 hours. Long enough for me to get things in motion. The moving truck was already idling out front when I opened the building's side entrance. The driver, a guy named Lionel, nodded as if he'd seen it all before. "We doing a full sweep?" he asked, squinting at the building. "Yes," I said. "Everything that's mine. Appliances included." He grinned. "You got it." It's strange, the kind of calm that descends when your world's been turned upside down enough times. You stop panicking. You start planning. I didn't pack chaotically. I wasn't tossing things into bags in a rage. I was methodical. First the kitchen, my espresso machine, the matching matte black blender and toaster set, the copper pots and pans I bought piece by piece over 2 birthdays. Then the living room, the smart TV I mounted myself, the sound system, the art prints I'd framed with care. Every piece of furniture I personally paid for, selected, assembled. The appliances were trickier: washer, dryer, fridge, but I'd paid for delivery and installation separately when I bought them. They were mine, not built-ins. Lionel's team made quick work of it. They were efficient, no questions asked. I saved the bedroom for last. Not because I was sentimental, but because it was where the most invisible damage had happened. The slow erosion of my self-worth had started between those walls, where I cried silently while my fiancé slept 3 inches away, somehow oceans apart. I opened the closet, took every sweater, every dress, and boxed them like memories I was done storing. I didn't touch the guest room. Let them keep the bare mattress and the coat hooks I never liked anyway. By the time they returned, I was gone. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe them that. I left the keys in a plain envelope with the doorman and rerouted my mail that afternoon. I moved into a small 1-bedroom on the Gold Coast. Cozy, old hardwood floors, and a creaky radiator that sounded like it coughed every night around 11 p.m. I loved it. It wasn't sleek like the Lakeview place, but it was mine. Peaceful. I slept better there in 2 nights than I had in the last 6 months. My phone didn't stop buzzing for the first 48 hours. Missed calls. Voicemails. My dad swore. My mom is feigning concern. Marcus texting, "We need to talk." I didn't reply. I didn't even listen. Then came the rage. A voicemail from my mother that started with, "I cannot believe you do this to us," and ended with, "You needing professional help, Ava." There it was again, that narrative. What they didn't know is that I'd already made my next move. The apartment wasn't just a home. It was an asset. And I was going to turn it into something useful again. I contacted a local property manager I knew through a college friend, Olivia, who specialized in short-term luxury leases. I gave her a tour, explained what happened, briefly, and asked if she thought we could make it work. She looked around, nodding thoughtfully. "It's got good bones. Great view. Furnish it with intention, market to the right crowd." Absolutely. I dipped into my savings and bought new appliances, better ones. Not out of pettiness. Out of ownership. I wasn't replacing what was taken from me. I was upgrading what I'd reclaimed. Within 3 weeks, we had interest. The tenant who finally signed? Daria Lee. I didn't know her at first. Olivia did. Apparently, she's a design-focused YouTuber and social media personality with a huge following. Her manager was scouting a place in Chicago for a filming setup, and my apartment's natural light and sleek aesthetic fit the bill. She walked in and said, "This view? I'd torment for this lighting." Then she looked at me and added, "And the color palette's perfect. Did you do this yourself?" "Yes," I said. "Every inch of it." She smiled and said, "Let's do it." The lease was short-term but high-end. She paid more per month than I did on my mortgage. She posted about it the next day, tagging the neighborhood and raving about the chic hideaway overlooking Lake Michigan. I didn't ask for promotion, but it didn't hurt. What I didn't expect was the aftermath. I didn't even know Daria had posted the apartment until a friend from college texted me. Did I just see your place on YouTube?" She sent a link. It was a 10-minute video, my temporary dream apartment in Chicago. "You won't believe this view." I watched it in bed that night, laptop propped on my knees, a half-eaten container of takeout next to me. Daria was giving the full tour, zooming in on the custom kitchen shelves I'd installed, the light fixtures I chose, the massive window seat where I used to sit and read on rainy afternoons. "My host, Ava, really made this space feel intentional," she said near the end. "It's not just pretty, it's peaceful. Like, you walk in and your shoulders just drop." That part hit me in the chest. Because it was true. I had designed that space to be calm. A sanctuary. And for a while, it had been, until it wasn't. She ended the video with a quick shout out to me by name, and then casually said, "Apparently her family used to live here with her for a bit, so she knows the neighborhood well. But now she's renting it out, and I'm the lucky one." I closed my laptop and just stared at the ceiling for a long while. I wasn't sure if it was pride, sadness, or relief, but I felt something loose inside me. Like I was finally taking deep breaths after being underwater. And then, the backlash came. It started with a comment. I didn't even notice it until Daria messaged me. "Hey, sorry to bother you, but do you know someone named Maureen K__?" She left a weird comment on my video. I clicked the link. It was my mother. The comment read, "Hope she didn't lie to you like she lied to her fiancé. Not everyone knows how unstable she really is." There it was. Public. Cruel. Petty. I stared at it, jaw slack. But Daria? She was graceful. She replied right under it. "My host's been nothing but professional and kind. Maybe check your own attitude before throwing shade from the cheap seats." The comment blew up. People started chiming in, defending me, calling out the toxicity, even speculating on what kind of mother would do that to her daughter. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They were unraveling themselves. I blocked my mom from my phone, my email, everything. I had already stopped responding to Marcus, but I guess the video reached him too. He emailed me. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I didn't open it right away. When I finally did, it was long. Apologetic. He said he finally saw what was happening and that he let other people's voices become louder than mine. He said he believed me now, that he didn't realize how much influence my mom had over his perception of me until it was too late. He wanted to meet for coffee. Just to talk things through. I closed the email. Took a deep breath. Then archived it. I had nothing to say. Meanwhile, the apartment was thriving. Olivia messaged me saying we had 3 more high-profile inquiries for the coming months. Turns out, a shout-out from someone with 6 million followers is good for business. The apartment that once held so much resentment, manipulation, and quiet heartbreak was now a source of steady income and peace. It felt poetic, in a way. The place they'd tried to turn against me was now a symbol of everything I'd reclaimed. Sometimes, when I walk near the lake, I pass by the building just to see it from the outside. I look up at the old window and smile. Not out of nostalgia. Out of knowing. Knowing I got out. That I trusted my gut. That I stopped trying to win people over who had no intention of rooting for me in the first place. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that once the apartment was leased, the comments stopped, and the emails dried up, I just moved on. But people like my mother don't let go easily. She didn't stop at the YouTube comment. She tried reaching out through a mutual family. My Aunt Lorraine got a call, then a long voicemail my mom never intended for me to hear but obviously hoped would be relayed. Ava needs help, she said in that performative, breathy tone she used when she wanted to seem calm but morally superior. She's acting out. She's isolating herself, lashing out at the people who love her the most. We're just so worried. But I wasn't isolated. I was protecting. I wasn't acting out. I was finally acting in alignment with truth, with peace, with the quiet kind of strength it takes to walk away when staying would be easier in the short term. Lorraine didn't take the bait. She called to check on me, sure, but her voice was warm, not probing. I think you did the right thing, she said. They've always had this way of spinning things. I just didn't realize how far it had gone. Neither did I, honestly. When you grow up with manipulation dressed as love, it takes years to recognize that the concern was really just control. 3 months after the lease started, I met Olivia for lunch at a little bistro in Andersonville. She slid her phone across the table and said, "You're booked out through December." I stared at the calendar. Every single week is filled. For different clients, all professionals with big social media platforms or production needs. And each of them paying more than what my mortgage and HOA fees combined ever cost me. You just turned your trauma into a business, she said with a wink. I laughed. Is that a new tax bracket? Sure is, she grinned. And we'll keep it that way. I started thinking seriously about what I wanted next. Not just career-wise, I was fine there. But personally, I wasn't ready to date, not seriously. But I'd stopped flinching when I saw happy couples walking hand in hand down the street. I'd stopped avoiding engagement posts and wedding invites. Healing doesn't happen in a clean arc. But it does happen. You just notice one day that your jaw isn't tight. That your shoulders aren't tensed before every phone call. That your first instinct when something goes wrong isn't "what did I do?" One day, I was standing in line at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned and saw Marcus. He looked smaller. Not physically, but smaller. Like the edges of him had worn down a bit. "Hey," he said, cautiously. "Didn't think I'd run into you here." I gave him a polite smile. "Hey." We stood there in silence until the barista called his name. He grabbed his drink, lingered. Then said, "You look good, Ava." "I mean, really." "Happy." "I am," I said. "I really am." He nodded slowly. "I'm glad." And then he left. Just like that. That night, I opened a bottle of wine and sat on the floor of my apartment, my new one, the one in the Gold Coast, and let myself feel proud. Not for surviving. But for building something new. For making hard choices. For walking away without a dramatic fight, without screaming or pleading or begging anyone to see my side. I didn't need them to. Because I knew it. Some endings aren't loud. They don't happen in a final argument or a courtroom scene or some grand act of rebellion. Sometimes, they arrive in silence, in an inbox that stays empty. A phone that doesn't ring. A family dinner you don't attend because you're no longer pretending. A future that doesn't include people who once defined your past. The final thread, the one that truly cemented the closure, came 6 months after I moved out. I got a letter. Not an email. Not a voicemail or a text. A letter. Handwritten. In my mother's neat, familiar script on thick cream-colored stationery she used for holidays and thank you notes. I knew the envelope before I even opened it. Inside, a single page. Her tone was careful. Strategic. She wrote that she regretted how things unfolded, that she never meant for Marcus to feel pressured, and that perhaps things were misinterpreted. Misinterpreted. A word that tried to soften her gaslighting into something palatable. There was no apology. Not a real one. No accountability. Just gentle phrasing and spiritual bypassing. I hope you find peace. I hope you forgive me. I hope you come back to yourself and your family. She wanted me to forget the damage, not repair it. I folded the letter in half and slipped it back in the envelope. I didn't throw it away. I didn't light it on fire. I tucked it into the back of a drawer, beneath old tax forms and expired warranties where all the other irrelevant paperwork lived. A relic of who I used to be. The real victory didn't come from getting revenge. It came when I walked into that Lakeview apartment, 6 months after Daria's lease ended, and saw it through new eyes. The space was different now. Cleaner. Lighter. Not just physically, but energetically. It didn't hold the weight of whispered insults or looks exchanged across the dinner table. It didn't echo with silence after arguments or the sound of someone else doubting your version of events. It was just space. For walls and a future I had reclaimed. I had Olivia stage the unit with simple, modern decor, neutral tones, a splash of personality. She suggested we raise the rental price again. It's a premium spot, she said. People will pay. They did. Within a week, we had a 1-year lease signed with a digital consultant relocating from Seattle. She messaged me a few days after moving in. I love the way this place feels, she said. Like whoever designed it really knew what calm was supposed to feel like. I did. I really did. I no longer spend time wondering why my parents did what they did. I stopped trying to figure out if it was jealousy, control, or some warped need to feel needed. Why doesn't matter anymore. The truth is, I gave them access to my life and they misused it. I gave Marcus my trust and he handed it to someone else. I used to think forgiveness meant letting them back in. Now I understand it means closing the door with grace, and keeping it closed. I haven't seen them since the letter. I don't expect to. And honestly? That's okay. I don't hate them. I just don't need them. These days, I walk past that old building sometimes on my way to meet friends or when I grab groceries from the market down the block. I look up at the windows and smile not out of longing, but out of pride. That was the place I learned to stop asking people to see me clearly and started seeing myself. That was the home I filled, then emptied, then rebuilt in my own image. That was the space where I let go of who I was trying to be for love, for approval, for family, and became someone I actually liked. If you're reading this because you're in something similar, because you're being made to feel like you're the unstable one, the problem, the overreact, or I'll tell you what I wish someone told me sooner, you're allowed to walk away, even if they raised you. You're allowed to reclaim your space, your peace, your narrative. You're allowed to stop explaining your side to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And sometimes, the best closure comes with a U-Haul, a signed lease, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you took the dishwasher. And everything else that was yours.